Happy Friday, everyone. Jason Gilbo here with DFC, taking a look at some GPP bats for today's slate. 14 games, a lot of good opportunities to get some different exposure tonight. I mean, there's a lot of games to really attack. Big total out in Fenway between Detroit and Boston. I got a game in Chase Field. Brewers and Diamondbacks. Nationals in a good spot. Indians in a good spot. So a lot of damage to do. We'll jump into catcher here. Obviously, Gary Sanchez was a big guy last night, as always. I mean, he has the upside of anyone. Dylan Bundy, slight reverse split guy, does give up a lot of home runs. 1.31 home runs per 9 to righties this year. FIP over 4. I think there is some regression coming for Bundy there. Does have a nasty slider, but is a fly ball pitcher. With a wind blowing out and a warm night in New York. So that's always going to be friendly for hitters. So he's obviously a guy you can consider come off a big game. He will draw some ownership. I like JT Realmuto, usually a guy I target for cash games instead, but I like the upside given the fact that he can steal a base or two and also can hit one in the gap and even drive in some runs. I like a Miami stack tonight. And just looking at Glass now, just a guy who's been struggling with both sides of the plate. Not a ton of stuff to worry about with him really. Realmuto is a solid hitter against righties. I definitely don't mind him. Glass now 371 Woba to righties this year, 31% hard contact rate. So I do like Realmuto. If you're diving down cheaper, James McCann's the guy I'm going to be looking at. He gets back in the lineup. Tonight he played a Wednesday AAA game, due back tonight. Really cheap on both sides. We know his power against lefties. Brian Johnson, this is a guy come off a complete game shutout, went down the minors, is dealing with a little bit of a hamstring issue, as noted by Nick Tasso on our stacking pod, which could be something. So Johnson, definitely a guy I'm going to be targeting tonight. I won't be shying away given his last start. I think he might, be a serviceable guy, maybe moving forward in certain spots, but tonight's definitely not one of them. So Sanchez, Realmuto, McCann, certainly guys that I'll be looking at tonight. Moving on to first base, obviously there's a ton of upside with Ryan Zimmerman, Paul Goldschmidt, Eric Thames. Those guys are going to draw fairly high upside and some ownership. I like Miguel Cabrera here. This guy's hitting over 300 over the last 2 weeks. Hasn't shown a ton of home run potential, but against lefties, hitting the ball extremely well in that ballpark. Warm nights, wind blowing out in Fenway, crazy high total. And you're getting, Miguel Cabrera at reasonably low price compared to like everyone else. I mean, he's about $1,000 cheaper than Paul Goldschmidt, Ryan Zimmerman on DraftKings, so that's something to note. Eric Thames as well. So, like I said, there's just a lot of potential here. And you kind of move down the list. I mean, Lucas Duda's going to draw a little bit lower ownership going up against Tehran, who's been awful against lefties. 391 WOBA, 37% hard contact rate, 2.36 home runs per 9. So Mets are a good stack tonight. They're a good one-off team with all these power right-handed bats or left-handed bats. So definitely going to be in play for me there. And then you look elsewhere. I mean, Matt Carpenter, ever since he's come back in the leadoff spot, he's just, cranking home runs. Despite the 216 average, this guy's been hitting the ball hard this year, so I'll definitely be considering him. Look at the Boston first baseman. You look at Jordan Zimmerman. He's absolutely been awful. 401 WOBA to lefties, 42% hard contact rate, 2.39 home runs per 9. Against righties, 372 WOBA, 2.29 home runs per 9, 37% hard contact rate. The one advantage here is, obviously he's been pretty bad against both sides of the plate. Home runs are up. The one advantage Hanley does have is the fact that Fenway does play a lot better for right-handed power than it does for left-handers. But I definitely want some exposure to both Hanley and Moreland here tonight. So I like the Red Sox. Obviously, great prices over on DraftKings. You got Mookie Betts, who's really cheap we'll talk about. But there's definitely a loaded first baseman position there tonight. Looking at second base, Daniel Murphy, hitting over 400. This guy hasn't shown a ton of power of late. Just one home run over his last, 2 weeks of play. Hasn't had a ton of doubles either. But, looking at him in this lineup, I love Washington against Cashner. Cashner's a guy who, we're expecting to continue to regress. 5.86 FIP, 6.43 XFIP against lefties. Not going to have a ton of hard contact, but this Nationals team is damn good against right-handed pitching. Daniel Murphy's one of the best left-handed hitters in the game. Definitely a ton of upside. I love him tonight. Really reasonable price on him on DraftKings, 4,600. Even FanDuel's not all that bad though. So definitely be considering him. D. Gordon, this is a guy with multi-stolen base upside tonight against Glasnow. Glasnow walks a ton of guys. Struggles with lefties, 439 WOBA, FIP, XFIP over 5. Obviously, you're not looking at home runs with Gordon, but this is a guy who can steal second and steal third. Pirates allow a ton of stolen bases, so keep a look at him. Ian Kinsler, that's a guy I'm kind of hoping goes overlooked on tonight's slate a little bit. Decent numbers against lefties, obviously, in that ballpark with the warm weather. He's going to be a guy who is going to be a part of my Tiger stacks. I don't even mind him as a one-off, so decent potential there. Eric Sogard, hitting over 400, hitting leadoff. This guy's going to be a nice plug and play. Should be popular, but he continues to show the upside. I mean, multi-hit games in 3 of the last 4. Home run yesterday, a couple doubles in the prior games in that San Francisco series. I'm definitely going to be looking at him as still a cheap guy to consider and throw in. So moving to third base, Jake Lamb. If you're looking to pay up, I don't hate. Obviously in that ballpark, his numbers at home are absolutely stellar. 9 of his 15 home runs have come there. Hits for a higher average, higher slugging as well, as most of these bats do in Arizona. Going up against Zach Davies, who against lefties, 351 WOBA, 1.53 home runs per 9. Certainly fireware there. I think even on the contrarian side, Travis Shaw, I think a lot of people gravitate towards Lamb. I'm kind of hoping Shaw gets a little bit overlooked. This guy, a lot of power potential, and especially in this ballpark against Randall DeGaldo, who you shouldn't be afraid of. So another Brewers bat to really look at and get fired away with. If looking elsewhere, Eugenio Suarez would be a really contrarian play, maybe in a late slate. I don't know if I can use him quite in this full slate. Joey Gallo is a one-off. It's always in potential here. Ton of power against right-handed pitching. A little bit of a ballpark downgrade. Curious to see what that lineup is. They lose to DH and what it'll look like, but do keep note of that. But Gallo always has potential. You look at Rourke this year against lefties, 1.60 home runs per 9. 327 WOBA, FIP and XFIP over 5. Not good numbers against lefties there. So he's a decent guy in that mid-range to kind of consider. Derek Dietrich, third base, eligible on DK, 2,900, coming off a really strong game. In a really good spot once again against the guy who struggles with lefties. So he should crack the lineup and definitely be in there. I like him a lot. Moving over to shortstop, this is a good Trey Turner game. Coming off a huge stolen base game last night, has 5 in his last 3 games. You look over his last 10 games, I mean, he has 11 stolen bases, and that's because he's finally getting on. So, I mean, you're looking at him, 388 on base percentage. That's what you kind of look at over the last few weeks here. Starting to come around, hits for higher power against right-handed pitching. And like I said, Cashner's due for some regression. He's in play for me. Francisco Lindor, struggling a little bit of late. Haven't talked about Cleveland bats yet. I mean, Carl Santana, Jason Kipnis are all in play, first base and second base. Francisco Lindor, I like a lot here. He's a little bit cheaper, got some power against right-handed pitching. At home is a guy who does extremely well. On base percentage is about 100 points higher than it is on the road. Against Miguel Gonzalez, who does struggle with lefties, 377 WOBA this year, 1.71 home runs per 9, low 37.5% ground ball rate. Frankie Lindor is a guy to really consider in that kind of mid-range option tonight. I like him quite a bit. Moving elsewhere, I mean, Didi Gregorius always in play. Like him in that short porch there. As always, Eric Sogard, shortstop eligible on DK. Kike Hernandez is, shortstop eligible. Amir Garrett's been really bad of late. So I don't hate that move if you want to be contrarian. But outside of that, I mean, those are kind of the guys I'll consider. I mean, cheap enough to really look at. If you get like a weird Washington lineup again where Steven Drew or Wilmer Defoe are in the lineup, I don't hate them at shortstop either. If you do need to punt instead of going with Trey Turner, but that's kind of a tough downgrade. Outfield, JD Martinez just in such a good spot again here against the lefty in Fenway with the wind blowing out. He's a nice option. Justin Upton priced up, and that's because he's been red hot of late, hitting over 300 over the last 2 weeks, a couple of home runs, hitting for some power, driving in runs. I like him in this matchup. I'm curious to see his ownership. I think because of the high price tag, it's going to be a little bit lower. So he's not that 2,800 FanDuel play like he has been in prior weeks, and he's not 4,100 or 3,900 on DK. So curious to see what that looks like. But I like him a lot. Michael Conforto, this guy's in a good spot against Tehran. just a lefty guy or a left-handed bat who Taylor's going to struggle with in that ballpark that's just been playing extremely well. Like the Mets stack in potential there. Andrew Benintendi really cheap on FanDuel. A couple of home runs in that Yankees series. One home run in that Yankees series, 2 home runs in that Baltimore series. Hard contact starting to come back up. Zimmerman's been absolutely off against left-handed pitching. 401 WOBA to lefties. 2.39 homers per 9. So Red Sox outfield really in play. Even a JBJ, I don't mind. Jay Bruce to kind of continue that Mets line. And then we get to Mookie Betts here on DraftKings. And I am still scrolling. Hold on. Still scrolling. 4,300 Mookie Betts. Yes, he's been struggling a little bit of late. Not striking out a ton as he usually doesn't. Against Jordan Zimmerman, this is just a lock and load play on DraftKings. You're getting a premium hitter, 4,300 against one of the worst pitchers in baseball over the last year. So I'll definitely be firing away with him. And you kind of get down here if you're looking for that mid-range. I don't hate Matt Kemp here. Good spot, 4,100 on DraftKings. But he's still 3,200 on FanDuel. Good spot against Matt Harvey, who I just, 3.34 WOBA to righties, 36.9% hard contact rate, 1.59 home runs per 9. Like I said, in that ballpark, it's really playable. Outfielder of like Lonnie Chisenhall, Lonnie Chisenhall, that's one thing. Michael Brantley's another one. I like in that matchup there again in Cleveland. Christian Yelich, really nice price tag on DraftKings, 4,000. Like I said, against Glasnow, there's a lot of potential here. So I definitely like going that route. If you're looking for cheap guys, Steven Souza's been red hot. I don't mind him in terms of power upside. Triggs isn't the greatest matchup, but is a contrarian route to go. If you get Taylor or Goodwin in the lineup for Washington, I'm not going to be against that. Given the fact that they do have some value at a decent price tag. Keon Broxton's an interesting one. Really struggling of late. But I don't mind him in that ballpark. Not a lot of people are going to be looking at him, so definitely kind of consider that. Joey Ricard, he's got some good numbers against lefties in his career. Montgomery's a fly ball pitcher on a hot night. I like Montgomery for GPP upside, but it wouldn't be worth noting just to kind of toss in maybe a bat or two from Baltimore against him. Franklin Gutierrez, cheap platoon bat against Amir Garrett. Amir Garrett's just been awful of late. 374 WOBA to righties this year, 2.50 homers per 9, 39% hard contact rate. So Dodgers right-handed bats are somewhat intriguing, like a Logan Forsythe, Franklin Gutierrez, Yasiel Puig, even just depending on what that lineup looks like. So keep an eye out there. You'll get some low ownership. That's going to wrap things up with me. You can head over to DaveFantasyCafe.com. Check out our great tools and content.